Baseball fans across the country are still trying to sort out their emotions with the passing of legendary player, manager, Whitey Herzog. Of course, that being felt here in Cardinal Nation. And to help us give some more perspective and some context about what Whitey's impact on the game in St. Louis is, we got John Sloane with us, a legend in local broadcast from radio and TV. But really, you were there with KPLR as sports director in the heyday of the 80s when Whitey ball was in full force here in town. What's your reaction? Someone that you never really thought the day would come where he would leave us, and it's arrived.
My first thoughts are mixed, but in a good way with Whitey. Of course, we're all sorry that he's gone, but he lived such a great life, and I'm going to 92. And I have nothing but really joyful thoughts about what a great manager he was, what a great guy he was. So I say so long, Whitey, but we're sad you're gone, but we all celebrate your life.
You know, John, I mentioned it. You have experience on the radio side of things just as well as what you did on TV. What was Whitey like working with the media? You know, we see the sound bites, we hear the clips, but what was it like to get FaceTime with them?
You'd never know what you're going to get, but in a good way. For example, we would, after the game, we would take our TV camera crew, we'd walk into his office where you normally might get him, but then he'd be sitting there with his Budweiser, and he'd be holding court with all the print guys. He loved the print guys, TV not so much. And you'd walk in with a camera and just said, no bleeping TV. And of course, our drawers would drop, and then we'd walk out, and then he'd come find us a minute later and say, okay, what do you want to know? That's the way he was. He loved to play around with that, but he was a pro. He knew his responsibilities, but he was a lot of fun. And that's one of the main things I remember about him.
You know, we had the chance to talk with Whitey last year when we lost Mike Shannon, and he was able to give such great perspective then, and he had great stories. He was so fun to be with and always took the time to tell you about the people that matter to him, and now we're talking about why we care so much about him. What is the legacy of Whitey on the game, on St. Louis? Because I feel like Whitey ball, the white rat, will be referenced as long as baseball is played in this country.
The legacy of Whitey is profound. He, first of all, was one of the greatest managers who ever lived. He invented analytics in his head before anybody even knew what it was. And he turned the Cardinals around. They'd had after a great decade in the 60s, they had a dreadful decade in the 70s. Whitey came and he changed everything. He traded Ted Simmons and crowd favorites and all that, and he completely changed the team around and was very successful. And I wouldn't say he saved baseball in St. Louis, but he sure brought it back. We will, as Shakespeare said, we will not look upon his like again.
You know, the great thing about this situation is just going back to opening day, back on April 4th, where Cardinal Nation did get to see Whitey up in the stands. We've shown that video throughout today, but just the fact that Whitey could be at the ballpark one more day with Cardinal Nation, and for everyone to get to their feet and give him applause and make sure that he feels that love from Cardinal Nation. I like to believe that he knew that he was beloved in this town.
Oh, believe me, he knew that. He knew that very well. He wasn't an egotistical kind of guy. He knew his power, he knew his impact, and he liked to play with his authority a little bit. But no, he knew he was loved by the fans for a lot of good reasons. And I also was very pleased to see him at opening day. I didn't know he had been or was sick at all, but he left us shortly after. But I think it's great he had one last opening day so he could know what we thought of him.
Impact will always be felt on the game and our community.
Always.
John, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, my
today.
pleasure, David.